Sort of sticking with Man United, because I feel there's a big overlap on this next conversation with Arsenal. That's the situation with strikers, because we keep seeing this kind of conveyor belt of news around Gyökeres. Arsenal are the priority. United have been rejected. Then it's not an outright rejection. I know you've been consistent with that. Yesterday, there was sort of news that he's now told Man United yes. We then saw sort of Šeško following Arsenal. And last night, there was sort of two differing reports. The Marzio saying it will be Gyökeres to Arsenal, which affects United. And then you have Sammy McBell, another colleague of yours I know you respect, who has said if things go to plan, it'll be Šeško. So the Arsenal striker situation it's confusing for a lot of people, but it does impact on United because we want a number 9, and it appears our current number 1 target is still dancing around with this Arsenal situation. So what's your latest with Gyökeres? And we might as well move into the Šeško conversation as well in one.
Yeah, and they are kind of linked because, as I've said before, and I don't mean to repeat myself, but there obviously might be, there hopefully is some fresh viewers. Andrea Berta works in this way where he takes 2 deals to the point of fruition and leverages them against each other. And the bottom line is that Berta wants Šeško for 70 million euros or so. Berta wants Gyökeres for the pack number, which is 70 million euros or so. Gyökeres has this friction over are Sporting going to honour that pact or ask for more? And Šeško has a variable release clause that's up at 80 million euros now. So Berta's being quite smart, and he's making it clear to both parties that there is another option, and therefore driving the price that he is trying to get over the line to determine which direction he's going to move in. My understanding as of now is still that if Arsenal can get Šeško done, that is the direction of travel. And the reason for that is because of all the legwork. The player's wage is lower than Gyökeres. He wants the move. He agreed to the Arsenal project 12 months ago, but then wanted to delay and do another season at Leipzig to continue what he thought was a beneficial pathway for his career. So this is really going to be about the club-to-club negotiation and what kind of price for each of these names Arsenal can lock in. And then we're going to get into formal bid territory. And I think now we're heading towards the 1st of July. Arsenal's window is really going to get moving. And even though people think they're kind of behind Liverpool, and obviously Chelsea and Man City have moved very fast to the Club World Cup, I think you're really going to see Arsenal kick into gear and kind of catch up with some of these sides. And that's shown by Norgard. Zubimendi's already been in London to finalise his move. So if they can get this number 9, then their window is going to be very much on track. And I would still keep an eye on the left-hand side, which maybe we'll talk about in a moment. Šeško, for me, if they can do him at 70, will be the one that Arsenal move on. Gyökeres would welcome an Arsenal bid. And I think some of that move is almost to put pressure on Arsenal to say, hang on a minute, we know you're advancing on Šeško as well. So the Gyökeres camp have made it clear that Arsenal would be the player's preference. And that's a smart move because we're in that process of them deciding between one or the other. But the overall cost of a Gyökeres deal is far higher than Šeško. Because even if you paid 80 million for Šeško and got Gyökeres for 70 million, the agent fees and the wages and other affiliated costs are much higher for Viktor Gyökeres. So it feels like Arsenal are genuinely moving on both simultaneously. And that's not me as a journalist trying to sit on the fence. It's just giving you the accurate reality of how Andrea Berta works. I've described it in the past as somebody off to a party that lays out several outfits, tries them all on, and then you don't know until the last minute what they're going to wear. That's how Berta works. And then when he decides which one he's going to move for, he's very maverick. He's very quick. You may note that with Norgard, that deal was done extremely fast. So Berta kind of changes pace in the market at times. And a lot of clubs don't know where he's going to move, how he's going to move. And then when he decides the budget available to lock in that player, he's extremely quick and decisive. So this is why I think there's a lot of confusion as to what kind of direction Arsenal might move in. But again, my understanding is that Šeško is the one that they are more likely at this stage to do if that fee drops to 70 million. But negotiations for Gyökeres are there as well. Then Manchester United, the situation hasn't changed, to be honest. They will look at their number 9s after the Brian and Mbumo situation is resolved. When they do, they'll draw up a short list. We know that Ruben Amorim appreciates Gyökeres. My info remains as I revealed a few weeks ago, maybe even a month now, that Gyökeres hasn't rejected Manchester United. He's open to the move. He would be willing to join without Champions League football. But I'm not aware that he's said to Manchester United, I want to join. I've agreed anything. I'm also not aware that Manchester United have gone to Sporting in any capacity yet. So we're very much looking a bit like Eberechi Eze in early stages where clubs are sounding out options. And I would expect Manchester United, like Liverpool are going to do, to draw up that short list of 3 or 4 in light of the fact that they missed out on Liam Delap. And then the number 9 will be a little bit clearer a little bit later in the window. But for now, I'm not aware that Gyökeres has said, I want to join Man United now. I'm not aware that Manchester United have formally advanced anything for him. They're going to have to wait until the new financial year in order to do that.
And that makes a lot of sense from my point of view and perspective. I hope you're right. I hope you're spot on. I hope that Arsenal go for Šeško. Decent signing for them. I hope it leads the way for Gyökeres, who I think would be an absolute stellar player for us. And the one question I have about the approach from Berta, some Arsenal fans that we've had on shows have said it's embarrassing that we don't know which one is the preferred target. What I've heard from yourself, Ben, and I just want to make sure I've understood you correctly, is there is a preferred target and it's Šeško, but at the right price. So if they get both to the right, if they get both deals at the price they want, you do think it would be Šeško over Gyökeres based on what you're hearing?
Yeah, and also Berta, in keeping his preferred target a little bit close to his chest, is strengthening his position in the market. And most clubs will not have like a 1, 2, 3 in terms of preferred targets. Most clubs will just have a depth of options. And then in concurrently negotiating the deals, you're simultaneously deciding which one you go for and who is your preferred target based on how those negotiations go. And this is why Berta wants as much information as possible, so he can basically say, don't go in with a pre-existing order or target and then find that you're weakened in the negotiation. Go in with depth, knowing that both Šeško and Gyökeres can do a job for Arsenal. And then during the negotiation, adapt and decide which one you're going to bid on based on all the different variables. And that is just Berta's target. But yes, for those that just want a black and white short answer, if Šeško becomes available at 70 million euros, then my expectation is that Arsenal will do that deal and Šeško wants the move. If Gyökeres is available at 70 million euros, he's more expensive and he's a newer target brought forwards into the mix by Berta. But a lot of that legwork, as I've reported before, had been done on Šeško. They revisited it with Leipzig in January. They made a very strong pitch 12 months ago when they were up against Manchester United and Chelsea. So Mikel Arteta is very much the one wanting Arsenal, if possible, to stick to the long-term plan of Šeško because of all that legwork. And Berta has added new names to allow for that freedom to challenge, but has also naturally inherited and respected the work done by Edu and Jason Etu. And still the feeling once again is that if they can get Šeško at the right price, that will be the direction of travel.
Makes perfect sense. This here from Bog Roll Patrol, great name, says, could Arsenal get both strikers and put Šeško on the left wing potentially?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I think when you're pitching to Šeško, you have to tell him, and then should he arrive, use him in his favoured position. 2 strikers for Arsenal, both coming in with a total outlay of 150 million euros, is not something that I've heard. I think it probably is one or the other. You can never say never because there are opportunities for outgoings as well. But if you think about Zubimendi at roughly 60 million, Norgard coming in for another 10 million, adding one of these strikers, let's just call it 70 million, finding a left winger could be an outlay there, even potentially of 100 million euros. It depends who they go for. But if Arsenal get any progress and move on Rodrygo, that's a big outlay as well. So to think of 2 of them coming in, and also 2 players that would both really only join Arsenal if they had kind of guarantees that they were the number 1, that they were starting every week, it probably becomes difficult. And that's sometimes an overlooked point in the market in all of this, that if you're an Arsenal fan, you're thinking, if we got 2, wow, we've kind of, quote, won the window. And you can't win windows, you can only win football matches. But when you're pitching to these kind of players, you may have buy-in from Šeško. If he finds out Gyökeres is joining as well, that buy-in can be removed because he suddenly starts to think maybe Gyökeres is going to be the one playing the big games. And this is often why a club will get an established striker and then a younger striker. It's why Chelsea with Delap, should they keep Nicholas Jackson, are not looking anymore at Benjamin Sesko, because they know that that's 3 established strikers all only competing for one spot. And that's why my information at the moment is that both those Arsenal deals are being advanced, but it is likely to be one or the other.
Just one or the other. We have a question here that says, Terry, can you ask Ben about the Nico Williams situation? Obviously massively linked to Barcelona, but he's also an Arsenal target on the left. So what is the latest as far as you're aware with Williams, and what are Arsenal going to do if he does join Barca?
Yeah, Nico Williams wants Barcelona. The feeling is that Arsenal and Chelsea are not going to explore this deal. That's been the case, remember, for quite some time. 58 million euros release clause is very competitive in the market, but the wages and the agent fees and the taxes and so on make it a very costly deal. He's extremely well paid at Athletic Bilbao. And as we've spoken about, Terry, on previous shows, Nico Williams is a bit like Martin Zubimendi. It's going to take a really strong pitch and a lot of thinking for him to actually agree to leave Athletic Bilbao. And that's why Athletic have offered him, as I revealed, a new deal as well. But at the moment, the player seems to have had his head turned by Barcelona and is prepared to do a deal for Barcelona specifically on reduced terms compared to the numbers offered to other clubs. And now Barcelona, who are happy to trigger the release clause, need to find a way of creating the squad wage space in order to register him. And if they fail, then Bayern are there lurking. But Arsenal and Chelsea seem to have pulled out of the Nico Williams race at this point, partially because they think maybe the most likely options are Barcelona or an Athletic Bilbao stay, and also because of the overall costs affiliated with the deal. On that left-hand side, Rodrygo remains an interesting one to watch. There were some comments yesterday from Xabi Alonso. I'm going to that Real Madrid against Salzburg game today. Interesting to see what kind of role Rodrygo has. And after the Club World Cup, rather than now, even though Rodrygo's representatives are already in talks with Real Madrid, there'll be a meeting between Rodrygo and Xabi Alonso to clarify his situation. And after that meeting, we'll know a little bit more as to whether Rodrygo actually wants to leave Real Madrid. My understanding with Real is they are prepared to sanction a sale, but a lot will come down to Rodrygo. How content is he to play on that right-hand side? And is he willing to fight for his place if he does move over to the left for opportunities against the likes of Vinny Jr. and Kylian Mbappe? But from Real's perspective, 90 million euros will certainly get engagement, and very possibly more than that. And then it will just depend on Rodrygo. And Arsenal are definitely alert to that situation. And in July, when we're in the new financial year, they'll feel like they're in a position where if they want to move on that deal, they can. But we're talking about interest and appreciation without Arsenal yet knowing what the Rodrygo perspective in all of this is, which is why at this stage, it's still nothing to get excited about. The newer name that I'm hearing is Eberechi Eze, again, for Arsenal, very much linked with Spurs at the moment. And we know that Tottenham, even though Matis Tel has signed permanently, would be very open to adding a versatile player like Eze, who can go over on that left-hand side or play more central, even though from Tottenham's perspective, finding a right-sided player is a slightly higher priority. Arsenal's the other way around. They had in the past looked for cover for Bukayo Saka, but you've got Nwaneri there now. But we know that Arsenal may look to strengthen on that left-hand side. Eze's got a £68 million release clause. And that £68 million is complicated, the same as Michael Olise's clause. You have to go through the front door, speak to Crystal Palace. They'll inform the player. The player will decide who he wants to engage with. When the player picks a preferred club, like with Olise, he'll be the one that triggers the clause. And then from there, if you get all the appropriate permissions, you can wrap up the deal. But anybody going to the Eze side first is going to have a problem, because this is very much a straight through the front door via Crystal Palace kind of deal. So we'll wait and see whether Arsenal advance anything on Eze, but he remains appreciated, and Tottenham, we know, could be there as well. So Eze's future, one to keep an eye on, even though Palace have got European football.
Comprehensive update there on Arsenal and, of course, United striker situation. Viewers, get the like button smacked.